comes into effect. With that, the announcement has already come in from the US President that an additional 25% will also be imposed on India. There's a 21-day period for that. But what is the impact that it is going to have on India, the exports from India to the United States, and what does it mean for trade? Remember, India has responded, but more importantly, is India going to also have a counter tariff on the United States or not? The US President Donald Trump signing the executive orders imposing 25% additional tariff, what he calls a penalty for continuing to buy Russian oil. What he basically means is that India now faces the highest tariff in Asia at 50%, and along with Brazil, the highest in the world. So here is how things stand as of now. The 25% rate that is announced earlier comes into effect from the 7th of August, but the additional 25% that has been announced comes into effect from the 27th of August. So let's now get you more breaking updates now coming in. The second round of tariffs will also be coming into effect in 21 days. So trade tensions at boiling point. Today onwards, the 25% is already in place. In another 21 days, we're going to see an additional 25% tariff being imposed on India. What would this mean for India? How is this going to impact India? How is India going to respond is going to be very interesting. But also the question of the United States hypocrisy comes in. Senior consulting editor Sanjay Chaudhary joins us on the broadcast. Sanjay, today is the big day. 25% tariffs come into effect. But the larger question of why the United States is going after India, claiming that it is because of the Russian oil, but clearly there's more to the story.
America itself imports a lot of Russian goods. Western Europe most certainly buys a lot of Russian gas. Of course, the amount may be coming down, but they still buy Russian LNG. Now, that has to be kept in mind when this 25% issue is discussed. The additional penalty issue is discussed. Also, India has to explain to America, and America should know this, that India buys Russian oil for the following reasons. The fact that the war between Russia and Ukraine has raised fuel, food and fertilizer prices enormously. Also, the war in the Middle East has raised fuel prices. If this were a peacetime situation, fuel prices would be much lower. And for a country which has a population of 1.4 billion people, and the per capita income is about $3,000, it is extremely important to buy cheaper oil. As a result, India is doing that. But it must be admitted that America is doing this specifically in India's case, because India, according to America, or Trump actually, is buying Russian oil and is part of BRICS. Now, then again, India has explained to the world that India is not in a position or is not keen to de-dollarize. So as a result, there is no argument for having India to face 50% tariffs, because India is not keen on de-dollarizing. India is buying Russian oil because of the wars. Prices have gone up and India needs this oil. And Western Europe and America are also buying Russian goods. And also, it must be said that no other country in the world except Brazil has to face this. Now, if India is a partner, a strategic partner, and a friend of America, how can India face this?
Absolutely. And is India the biggest purchaser of Russian oil? The answer is no. But China has been given some relief, and yet you have India being imposed with now what will effectively be a 50% tariff. So let's talk about where the tariffs actually stand. We are now tied with Brazil with 50% tariff that has been imposed. India and Brazil, these are the only two countries in the entire world on which the United States has imposed a 50% tariff. Apart from that, South Africa has also been imposed with a 30% tariff. Similar tariffs being imposed, and this is very important because in South Asia, India has the highest tariff, which means competitors of India like Vietnam, like Indonesia, have much lower tariffs. Vietnam at 20%, Indonesia at 19%, Japan at 15%, and other countries as well. Remember, trade deals have been signed by the United States, South Korea at 15% and UK at 10%. So the lowest being the UK at 10%. India already has a free trade agreement with the United Kingdom as well. But with the United States, this is going to be a point of contention. 50% is where it currently stands. Significantly, though, 3 days before the deadline for the 50% tariff to take effect, the US negotiating team is expected to land in New Delhi to participate in the 6th round of talks. With, remember, questions have been going on, so this actually means that India still has 21 days to change Trump's very, very fickle mind. The opposition, though, has already made up its mind, and the Congress party, in fact, has already revived the weak Prime Minister attack. Remember, they've been attacking the Prime Minister time and again. They've been putting out memes as well saying this is a weak Prime Minister, completely discounting the fact that Donald Trump is somebody who just goes by his own fancy, women fancy on whatever happens. Once again, the Congress party, though, has taken the same template, which is that Trump is whatever Trump says is the gospel truth to attack the Modi government. In fact, their social media timeline is flooded with mockery for India. Look at some of the tweets that have been put out, where they have claimed that the United States has mocked India, that India has a very weak Prime Minister. These are some of the memes that have been put up by the Congress party. And their commander-in-chief in attacking the Prime Minister is, of course, Rahul Gandhi, who has said that the Prime Minister, Modi, better not let his weakness override the interests of the Indian people. In fact, this was the attack that came in. And one wonders, what is the basis of this presumption? Because if anything, the raising rates only show how India is not actually bowing down to the bullying that has come in from Trump, and also continues to trade with Russia because it is in the interest of the nation.
No longer surprising is that countries like the US can think that they can get away with blackmailing us, which is an unfortunate reality. Having said that, we hope that the Prime Minister, not that he has done it in the past, but flexes his muscle and overcomes his weakness and stands up to this bullying. The entire country is more important, our business interests are more important than his fake self-image.
The Prime Minister Modi doesn't have guts to retaliate. In the same coin, what are you doing? So had there been government of Congress, and of course now the country needs a leader like Prime Minister like Rahul Gandhi. He is the one who can reply back to US in same coin.
So these were some of the Congress leaders who have made these remarks. But there is one leader who has steadfastly stood with India's line of highlighting the US double standards. And that is Shashi Tharoor. Now, he is calling for India to give US a taste of its own medicine by imposing reciprocal tariffs.
There is unfortunately a certain double standard involved. Clearly, this has not been a particularly friendly gesture from a country we thought was well disposed towards us, our administration that we thought was well disposed. Very clearly, we have to act accordingly, and we will have to learn our lessons from this experience. I think there is certainly a likelihood there will be some pressure within India now to impose comparable reciprocal tariffs on American exports to India. So I think we're going to have to really start looking at other trading partners much more in these circumstances.
We're breaking updates now coming in. Shashi Tharoor may call for retaliation and reciprocal tariffs, but India is being very firm